Hello everyone, it is great to see you all here. Welcome to Zoho Directory's webinar where we cover everything identity and access management. And I'm Evangeline, product marketer from Zoho Directory team, and I'll be your host for today. The topic of today's webinar is what businesses should know about identity and access management. Here's a quick look into today's agenda. There's not much to see here, but I promise it will be very informative for you. So when I was researching for this webinar to bring in the best IAM findings that businesses should know in 2024, I also realized that IAM is often thought of as a subject that is complex and specialized only for enterprises or only if you're a target of a cyber attack. But that is far from the truth because IAM is relevant to all of us, to all organizations and all sizes if you use cloud resources. Whenever businesses are not sure about how IAM is relevant to them, and whenever they think that IAM is something they need to concentrate about only if they're a large business, they usually fall into these three categories. The first set of people are the ones they think that IAM is irrelevant because they're small. These are the type of businesses who overlook IAM because they feel that they have too little employee count and too little resources to be managed, and they are too small to even be a target of some kind of an attack. And they often think IAM and its challenges are meant for enterprises, and they do not have such problems when it comes to IAM. But that is not true. And the second set of people are the ones who say that we don't have an IAM system in our organization, but I feel that everything seems to work fine, so why would I bother? Growing businesses with limited resources and employees often feel that there is no immediate need for IAM, or they feel that their business does not require an IAM immediately. They do not have the staff or the platform to take care of the resources easily, so they often leave it unnoticed and unaddressed, or do it manually, or make do with whatever tools they have at the moment. The next set of people are the ones who find it difficult to grasp the concept of IAM because they often think that IAM involves physical infrastructure and a huge budget, and which involves a large IAM IT team, which they may not have. But this is not true as well. IAM seems to be a very difficult concept for them, so they are either waiting it out or they're delaying it because they think they're not fit for it right now. But I have to tell you that there is only one rule that matters when it comes to IAM, and that is if you have employees in your organization, and if they use apps to work, and if they use devices like laptops and desktops to work, and they connect to networks like Wi-Fi and VPN, you need to take identity and access management seriously, no matter what the size of your business is. Do not fret, this webinar is made to help you. And also stay till the end as we have a chart that helps guide businesses into the right IAM tools and practices they might need to start their IAM journey. As we saw earlier, we have a lot of resources. You have your employees and the apps and devices they use and the networks they connect to. So there are a lot of a lot of resources, and it's never a straight line to manage them. The business environment is very complex, and the growing demands of access management and cybersecurity is constantly growing. One such example is remote work. If you take a few years back, remote work was not that prevalent, but now we have employees who are doing remote work completely, and there are organizations that have opted for hybrid model. As you can see, the demands have changed. Earlier, you just have to take care of your resources inside the office, but now you have to ensure that your resources are managed even when your employees working from anywhere they want. So as you can see, the demands are changing. And to meet these growing demands, you need IAM. No matter if you're a small business or a Fortune 500 company, you need to secure your business, but without affecting your productivity and the ease of IT operations. And this is where IAM helps. IAM helps future-proof your organization. It helps you future-proof against all the growing access management demands, and also helps you future-proof against the changing landscape of how people work. And it also helps you against the cybersecurity threats that is evolving every single day. So Not just us, over 80% of the IT managers and decision makers globally have either used an IAM or intend to use an IAM or even to enhance their cloud-based identity and access management in the next 2 years. So what is IAM? IAM helps your users access your resources and to manage what they do with those resources. IAM systems help you keep the hackers away by ensuring that your employees have the right access to the right set of resources and nothing more. And it helps you do that by taking care of your authentication, where you authenticate who is accessing your data. And it also helps you authorize and make sure that only the right people have the right access to your devices. And also takes care of your identity and lifecycle management, where your access privileges are managed all throughout the lifecycle of an employee, right from the day he joins to the day he leaves. And it also helps you keep audit trails that lets you know what is happening inside your organization within these resources, how they're being handled and how your data is being stored is all recorded in these audits. So if you don't take IAM seriously and your resources are constantly going, you will be led to bottleneck situations. And today I want to show you what a good IAM can help you with in such situations. One of the major cybersecurity threats when it comes to organization is unauthorized access. To tackle unauthorized access, you have to authenticate your users when they try to log in or access your organization's resources. If you take businesses these days, the most common practice of authentication is with usernames and passwords. But the thing with passwords is that they come with their own risks. Because password is a knowledge factor and it is often reliant on the user's password practices. And this leads to security vulnerabilities in your organization, and that is what we call as the password problem. If you take any organization, no matter what their size is, one major part of their identity is their work apps. Data shows that an average team uses about 60 to 80 SaaS apps every single day. Apps play a huge part in our everyday lives. Though apps make work easy and it is highly scalable in short time, it also brings in a lot of security vulnerabilities and manual work for the IT team. And not just that, with a lot of credentials being managed in terms of work apps and personal apps, users are usually led into password fatigue. And this means that your users will use weak passwords or reuse passwords or even store it or write it down somewhere that is not safe. Researchers show that 39 to 50% of people reuse personal or business passwords for their workplace accounts, which is really bad for your organization's security. And not just that, even if people manage to use secure, strong passwords, they might store it or write it down or make a note of it somewhere very unsafe. And that is really bad for your organization because, in fact, 80% of the breaches involve weak or stolen credentials. Okay, so listening to all of that, you may think that maybe changing the passwords once in a while and occasionally is going to help, but that does not work because every single user may use dozens of passwords and you might have hundreds of employees in your organization. So if you're trying to reset passwords every few months or weeks, it leads to a lot of IT pressure and financial stress on your company. According to a Gartner survey, 20 to 50% of all the IT desk help calls are about password resets. And a Forrester research says that an average password reset call can cost you about $70. The problem of passwords just does not end with your apps because you need authentication all along the way in every endpoint in your organization. This includes your device passwords and your network passwords. So do you think using a complex password can help? The thing with a complex passwords is that they do not go well with user experience because if you take a look at this table, you can see a trend where your passwords begin to get secure only after you cross the 11 character mark and with additional complexity rules applied. The thing this proves is that complexity rules makes your passwords complex but not necessarily secure. But what it definitely does is that it causes password fatigue for your employees because they have to remember large number of passwords that is so complex. So this password fatigue will again lead your employees to poor password practices. So how can you solve this problem? So how to tackle this password problem? So there are two ways you can do that. The first thing you can do is to reduce the mental load of your employees. To do that, you can opt in for single sign-on. Single sign-on is an authentication technology where your employees can access all of their work apps with just one set of credentials. This way, they will have less number of passwords to remember, and in turn, they will use securer, stronger passwords. And also, when you include apps into your organization, make sure they are OIDC and SAML protocol supporting apps so you can easily implement single sign-on for them. So the next thing you can do is to have a password manager. When you have a password manager, your employees can feed all of their accounts password into the password manager. So the next time they want to sign into an app or a website or anything, this password manager will autofill the passwords for your employees. So this way they will have less things to worry about and remember about. So next thing you can do to tackle the password problem is go for the layered security approach, or what we call as the multi-factor authentication. MFA is an authentication method where the user will be verified more than once before they can gain access into their account. For example, once you enter your password, you might also have to give another sort of identity proof before you can gain access to the account. MFA is considered one of the most secure authentication model, and even more so, app-based MFA is considered as the best secure authentication model there is. Even Microsoft agrees that over 90% of the account hacks can be tackled with MFA. With MFA in place, even if your passwords are not safe or if they get compromised somehow, your account will still remain safe. Okay, we have completed the first challenge, big IAM challenge organization usually face. So the next big IAM challenge comes from the joiner, mover, and leaver trend that is happening in organizations. We have all seen that employees are constantly joining, moving, and leaving organization, which is something very common to all of us. We are pretty used to it. But what it means for business is that their employee turnover is high, which means that every time your employees are joining, moving, and leaving, it leaves your IT team to assign and manage all of your resources manually. And this is a very tough job because the employee count is constantly flowing and there is a huge usage of cloud tools in your organization, which makes things worse, and it can quickly get out of hand and lead to security and productivity problems in your organization. This demand to manage your resources start from the day an employee joins your organization to the day he leaves. And this is why you need to concentrate on identity and lifecycle management. When a new employee joins your organization, they require access to role appropriate resources right from day one. Organizations usually try to do it manually or make it the team leader's responsibility to do so. When organizations try to manually provision access for all their apps and devices, it will work for a while. But when you're onboarding multiple people at once and you have a lot of resources to manage, it becomes really time consuming during the onboarding, and your new recruits will be made to sit idle for days together, and this will bring a drop in your productivity. The second focus point in the identity lifecycle is when your employees move roles or teams. When people are constantly moving and changing roles, you need to alter their permissions to keep them productive and secure. If you don't have a proper identity and access management setup, this means that an employee would have changed roles and teams without having enough to do so, or by retaining too much access than they actually require to do their job. Privilege creep, in particular, is a problem that many organizations face. Even researchers show that only 6% of employees are confident that they do not have access to data that they do not need in their organization. Privilege creep means that your employees will be accumulating access privileges that they do not need, and in the end, they will have access to resources they do not need, which is not good for your organization. The third biggest challenge in identity lifecycle is secure offboarding. We earlier saw that onboarding is the biggest challenge in organizations, so is secure offboarding. Improper offboarding means security challenges in your organization, because if your employee is going to retain access to sensitive information, it means data misuse in your organization, which is really bad. So whenever an employee is about to leave your organization, it is important that their access is revoked and they do not have access to things they don't need in the organization. But over 70% of the organization say that they've experienced instances where employees get access to sensitive data, or they see that employees retain access even after leaving the organization. So what can you do to solve the problem? The first thing you can do is to implement the principle of least privilege. According to the principle of least privilege, a user account should have the exact access to complete their job and not more than that. The access should be no more and no less. You should assign access to your employees in such a way that they have the exact amount of access and not more. The second thing you can do is to automate your provisioning and deprovisioning. By automating your provisioning, it makes your organization secure by ensuring that your employees will have access to the apps they only need and not more. And also, when they leave their organization, all the access to the related apps and connected apps will be revoked automatically. This not only helps your onboarding and offboarding, it also improves the overall employee management and user management all across the apps. The third thing you can do is to implement role-based access control. Role-based access control is a technique where access is given to employees based on their roles in the organization. This way, you need not go and deal with individuals separately, because the access will be given to the particular people based on what they do and what they need in their organization. When you employ RBAC, you accumulate people based on their needs and give them roles, and then give access privileges to such roles. So this way, employees are connected to roles and then they are given permissions. So this way, user management becomes supremely easy, because every time a user is added to a particular role, all the relevant access will be automatically given to them. And when you plan your access control strategy, make sure that you give limited amount of access and minimal amount of access that is required for them to do their job, and not more than that. The fourth thing you can try is privileged access management. Privileged access management helps you take care of your privileged accounts and systems. For example, your payroll systems and your IT admin accounts, because if an intruder gains access into these accounts, they can leak data that has customer and employee PII. So privileged access management focuses on protecting these privileged accounts from data misuse and breaches and any sort of unauthorized access. Okay, so the next big challenge in IAM is because of the fact that it is mostly unnoticeable by people in their organization. Because this is one security vulnerability that often brews in the shadows and does not show itself unless it's too late. Do you know that your organization usually has two types of resources, the ones that you know of and the ones that you don't? Let's take an example. Do you use ChatGPT at work? If you said yes, I have a follow-up question for you. Does your organization approve its use officially? I get it, the answer is tricky because we all use it sometimes. But according to research, it says that 7 out of 10 IT workers use AI tools like the ChatGPT without the consent of their organization. And this is what we call as shadow IT. Usually in organizations, there are authorized apps and there are user-implemented unauthorized apps. A research by Better Cloud says that the number of resources running on a corporate network is thrice the amount that the IT team is aware of. So shadow IT refers to any software or any hardware that your central IT team is not aware of. Shadow IT can be as simple as someone with a need and a credit card signing up for a video conferencing app just because they like how the other app works. Or it can also be a team which decides to share their work files using a personal cloud storage account. And also employees' personal devices like phones, laptops, and other storage devices like the USB and the external hard drive are major contributors to shadow IT. When there is a specific need and the user cannot be bothered with contacting the IT, or if they like a specific app that helps them to do their job better and easier than the sanctioned app, they will use it. And also, shadow IT is most probably a sign of the absence of the IT team, or if the IT team is too burdened and out of contact most of the times. So, no matter what the reason is, shadow IT is considered one of the major security threats in your organization because it can affect you in more than one way. Researchers show that 33% of successful cyber attacks comes from shadow IT. Shadow IT can introduce security threats in your organization if the unmonitored apps and devices are not subjected to the same set of security measures that your other resources have in your organization. And the way these resources are monitored, patched, and how data is stored in these resources is not something you have control over, which makes them vulnerable and a target of cyber attack. So security is one of the major impact when it comes to shadow IT. The second major impact of shadow IT comes from the fact that 80% of employees admit to using SaaS applications at work without the IT approval. This majorly affects the interoperability of all the apps that you have in your organization, because when there are multiple teams at play, organizations usually go for resources that integrate and play well together. But when you have unmonitored apps in your organization, all the data is scattered everywhere into different platforms, and they do not, or they may not work well together. So the next biggest drawback is the cost. If your employee is using unsanctioned apps and products to do the everyday job, which your organization already has solution for, it means that you're paying twice to do the same job, which is really bad for your organization's financial impact. And also, resources show that 59% of the businesses agree that IT spend to be the major concerning factor when it comes to shadow IT. So what can you do to handle this problem? We suggest the 5-step approach to shadow IT, and the first step is to streamline with comprehensive policies. In most cases, when an employee is bringing in technologies that bypass your IT protocols, they're not really trying to create a risk. In most days, they just want to get their job done, or they want to try a new tool, or even sometimes they don't even know that smaller installation needs to be run through by the IT, and sometimes they are in a hurry. So what you can do is to set org-wide policies and rules for your organizations to follow whenever there is a need for a new resource. And also make the rules not so restrictive, because they should establish that whenever a new resource is required, it should be handled appropriately. The next thing you can do is to identify shadow IT that is there in your organization. To better tackle shadow IT, you need to pinpoint its presence in your organization. So this way, you can not only manage your shadow IT better, but you can also see the areas where your processes, technology, and employee experience needs enhancements. So this way, you can also have employee surveys to better manage shadow IT and to identify the spots and needs where you might need to take action on. The third approach is to provide your employees with the right set of resources. One of the main reasons people go for shadow IT is because they do not have the right resources. So look into your organization and see what kind of chat apps, video conferencing, data storage resources they need, and provide them with the right set of resources. And also prioritize user experience while selecting the resources for your organization. And if they're not user-friendly, make sure you give training to your employees to use those resources. And also establish MDM and bring your own device policy, so your employees can use their own devices and their convenient operating systems to get their job done without disrupting the security. The fourth thing you can do is to implement security tools and the zero trust model. To complement the shadow IT policy, you can implement other security measures like MFA, antivirus, VPN, patch management, user management, and least privilege principle. In addition to that, make sure you have zero trust model. This way, all your employees will be verified every time they want to access an app or a device or a network. So there is no unauthorized access or there is no misuse of data that is happening in your organization. The fifth approach is pretty straightforward. It is to prioritize shadow IT. I get it, IT teams are always full of tasks and their priorities change every single day. But if you can prioritize shadow IT and tackle its needs as and when required, I think you can tackle shadow IT easily. Fourth biggest IAM challenge comes from the fact that the growth of desperate resources in organization is so big that it can decentralize your core identity operations. For example, if you're handling apps, you not only have apps, you have cloud apps and you have on-prem apps. If you take devices, you have laptops, desktops, phones, and all of these run in different operating systems. And in networks, you have Wi-Fi and VPN. You get the idea. There are a lot of resources and there is a lot more ways to manage them, which makes it a very heterogeneous ecosystem. If you are trying to manage your apps, you can use on-prem directories and solution to manage your on-prem apps. But the thing is, on-prem solutions are not made for cloud apps, which are very prevalent these days. So organizations tend to use on-prem directories and cloud directories together. And this way, the app identities are very separated and your data is scattered everywhere. And this applies to your device ecosystem as well, because device management used to be simpler because it was all Windows earlier. But now we have Mac and Linux ecosystems running in your organization. So on-prem can only help with your Windows devices. To handle your Mac OS and Linux devices, you might have to opt in for another directory or another set of platform. And not just that, you have different types of devices happening in your organization, like your laptops, desktops, and phones. So this even breaks down how your device data is scattered among different identities, and this brings a huge problem in your organization. The problem with this approach is that your identity and access management is decentralized. Your data is scattered among different directory sources, and there is no unified way for you to handle your identity or even have a view over how your resources are being handled. You cannot have one security policy to govern everything because your data is scattered everywhere. There is no way you can do it with one security policy. And your IT team will struggle to manage everything using different point solutions because they're constantly juggling and searching for information between different apps. The balance between security and user experience has been a constant challenge for IT pros even in 2024, and this is why the demand for unified platform has risen. Over 8 in 10 IT pros prefer a single platform to take care of their identity-related issues and security and access management over a mix of best-in-class point solutions. So what can you do to solve this problem? If you have on-prem solutions to manage your on-prem resources, you must leverage your on-prem directory and extend the benefits to your cloud directory. So you can use a best-in-class cloud-based IAM solution to extend the benefits of your on-prem directory to the cloud. The second thing you can do is, if you have on-prem softwares and cloud softwares, you can unify it all using one cloud directory, so you have a unified way to manage everything from a single space. The third thing you can try is to sync all of your directories. So every time some kind of an action is done in one directory, it will also reflect in the other directory. Let's say you add a user or remove a user from one directory, or even alter some kind of access management of a cloud application, it will also reflect in the other directory. This way your data is unified and it stays same throughout different directories. If you look at all the problems we saw so far, there is one common goal between all of these problems, and that is security. There is a common misconception that the attackers and attackers are often concentrating on enterprises, but that is not the truth. This is a myth because the small and the medium businesses are the sitting ducks, but often misunderstand the security vulnerabilities they have in their organization. If you see the data, over small businesses receive 350% more social engineering attacks than large businesses, and over 87% of small businesses have compromised customer data. And in 2020, there were 700,000 attacks on small businesses, which costed around $2.8 billion in damages, which is huge considering a small and a medium business's growth. So what you can do is you need a security policy to govern all your resources and set security standards that you can ask your other resources to adhere to. With security policies in place, you can decide on how your resources are being authenticated, and you can also set password policies where you can mandate the users to stick to a security standard or a password standard they have to stick to when they're setting their passwords. And you can also control who has access to your accounts and who has access to your resources, and there is no unauthorized access happening in your organization. And you can also whitelist IPs which can access your organization's data. With audits, all your interactions between your organizations will be made as events and stored in audits. So if something amiss happens, you can backtrack and see what happened and take care of it swiftly. The next thing IAM helps you with is compliance. IAM compliance is not just a security best practice, but it is something most data compliance regulations demand. If you're trying to be compliant for PIDS, PCI-DSS, HIPAA, or SOC 2 and NIST, all of these regulations mandate you to follow certain IAM policies in your organization. So making sure you have your IAM procedures in place helps you be compliant and stick to the compliance needs of these regulations, and also secure your business in a better way possible. When you're compliant, it ensures that your security and privacy procedures are solid and reliable to you and your customers. So let's see what role IAM plays in being compliant. Compliance mainly focuses on enforcing access controls and getting visibility into users' activities. And it also takes care of the best practices of authorization and authentication. And it also takes care of your identity governance. If you take a look into this table, you can enforce access controls in your organization with the help of role-based access control and least privilege principle, and also by having continuous monitoring. This way, if something goes wrong, you will know immediately and you can act on it. The second component focuses on visibility and monitoring of user activities, and you can do that with the help of audit logs. And the third component of IAM compliance focuses on authentication and authorization, and the best thing you can do to satisfy those is with multi-factor authentication and fine-grained authorization. Fourth component of identity governance can be solved with the help of identity lifecycle management. Okay, so we just saw all of the IAM challenges that can happen to your organization and how you can solve those and what tools can help you solve them in your organization. Now we have created a table, a chart that can help you take the right direction towards IAM. And we have categorized this chart in a way that it fits different categories of businesses based on what their business condition is right now. So if you take the first set of people, these are the people that say we are still small because they have really small employee count and really less resources to be taken care of. So they can focus on making their password practices stronger with the help of SSO, password manager, and MFA. No matter what the size is, security is really important. So having security policies make sure that they can take care of their authentication and authorization all throughout their processes. And the second set of people are the ones that have growing employee count and resources. So they're gradually increasing. They're not as small as the first ones. So these set of people can focus on password problems and security. In addition to that, they can also go for automated provisioning and deprovisioning, because since they have employees and resources coming in and going out, automating a provisioning and deprovisioning cuts in a lot of work, and it also keeps your employee organization secure. And they can also focus on shadow ID policies, though even though it's pretty early in the organization, it creates awareness and it also sets up a standard very early in the very early stage of the organization. The next thing, they can concentrate on compliance based on the needs they have in the organization. If they are trying to be compliant to certain regulations, they need compliance set up in their organization. The next set of people are the ones with diverse teams and resources. They already have well-established teams and a lot of different kinds of resources in their organization. So to these set of people, additional to whatever we covered so far, you can also concentrate on RBAC, because role-based access management helps you in assigning access without doing it manually. Since you already have teams and respective roles, it will be easier when you try to assign apps and resources to your organization. The next thing you need is audit trails. A lot of resources and a lot of teams, meaning there is a lot of interaction that is happening every single day. So if you need to know what is happening all throughout the day and every single day between your resources, you need to concentrate on having audit trails, which also helps you in complaints. The next thing you can try is spam. Based on the team's security levels and demands, and based on how you want to protect a privileged account or a team or a system, you can set rules and establish definite security procedures for that particular accounts and system. So having a PAM can help you. So this table is a very rough table, and there is no set rule of what to follow and what not to follow. This just gives you an idea of which direction you can take if you're in that particular category. So feel free to customize this as per your needs. Okay, so we've almost come to the end of the webinar. So if any of you who have joined today is a Zoho user, do you know that your Zoho product comes in with inbuilt IAM capabilities? If you're not sure about that, or if you want to know more about that, you can drop us an email at presales@zohodirectory.com, and our experts will contact you to help you set up IAM related things for your organization, and also help you explore what is already there in your system. And the next is, if you're a Zoho partner who has attended this webinar, the one thing I have to tell you is, whenever you try to go and implement Zoho solutions for your customers, make sure identity is a big part of their organization, especially if you're trying to implement workplace or mail. There are high chances that they will need an IAM solution. In such a cases, you can use those solutions to help them solve their problems. If you need more info or you want to explore what the opportunities are in this space, you feel free to drop us an email at presales@zohodirectory.com. If you're someone who's interested in IAM in general and want to know about what is happening in the space and want to keep yourself informed about the latest updates and trends, do follow us on our socials on Twitter, X, and LinkedIn. And also, you can also follow us on our IAM newsletter called Always Verify, where we publish an issue every month and we cover whatever is trending and whatever you need to know about IAM in that particular month. And I promise it will be interesting and informative. If you are interested to implement IAM tools or anything we mentioned above in your organization, Zoho has its own solution and offerings for you that you can try. So if you want to do that, you can always contact us using the emails mentioned below, or sign up for a free demo in our website. And I think that's it for today's webinar. Thank you for joining. And if you have questions, you can leave your questions in the chat bar below. Thank you.